China had not expanded to its current size today. To the north of Yue was the state of Wu, its rival state. It was bigger, meaner, and also the alpha state of the period. And its king, He Lu, was the hegemon of the time. What happened was that the ruling Zhou dynasty had divided its land to their kins and nobles, making them the de facto rulers of their respective states. Being the hegemon means that Wu was the leading superpower, and the other states looked up to them for leadership, arbitration, and even security. How did Wu got so powerful, you ask? Well, perhaps one of the reasons is simply because Sun Tzu worked there. By the way, just to let you know, I will be using the commonly accepted English pronunciation of these names because I'm sure some of you will be more familiar with them. And it is also hard for me to switch languages mid-sentence. Alright, back to the topic. In 496 BCE, Wu is in a bit of a slump. Because a decade ago, in 506 BCE, King He Lu, leading his generals Sun Tzu and Wu Zixu, defeated the powerful state of Chu in a series of battles and captured its capital. But they were defeated when the state of Qin, to the west, unexpectedly decided to send reinforcements against He Lu. To make the matter worse, He Lu's brother suddenly decided to claim the throne for himself. So He Lu had no choice but to return to his kingdom to deliver some brotherly love at the end of his murder stick. But the lucky scamp got away. A decade after the disastrous setback, now He Lu eyes a smaller prize. The state of Yue was grieving the death of their former king.
Now, Go Jian, my boy. Losing a loved one is a painful affair. But worse things could have happened.
But what could possibly be worse than this? And he invaded Yue. We don't know if Sun Tzu had personally participated in this war, but according to the records, he was still alive in the years leading to this campaign, and he had presented He Lu with the art of war. So, with or without Sun Tzu, this army carries the essence of his strategic genius, and it proved itself to be as deadly as you would imagine. Tiny little Yue had no chance whatsoever against Wu in a conventional warfare. They kept losing and losing until Go Jian, in his desperation, launched a suicide attack. Literally. He divided his army into three and ordered the soldiers in the front row to commit literal suicide by cutting themselves in the throat. Boys got no chill. If you thought that was f***ing mental, imagine how the Wu soldiers reacted. The distraction worked. The Yue forces launched a surprise attack and proceeded to mop the floor with the dumbfounded Wu soldiers. In the ensuing battle, He Lu was wounded. His big toe was lopped off, and his forces were thoroughly trounced. Go Jian scored a near impossible victory against an overwhelming odds. He Lu died shortly after returning to Wu, and Sun Tzu also died the same year, though through unknown cause. But hey, he will take all the good news he can get. The state of Wu is no longer a threat to Yue. Bring out the Baijiu! But this was just the beginning, and the things are going to get even wilder from here on. Before his death, He Lu's last message to his crown prince Fu Cai was,
Never forget Yue!
Now that he is king, yay, Fu Cai immediately implemented his father's message into action and started reforming the Wu army. Go Jian did not know it at the time, but this young man will soon become his lifelong arch-rival. For the next 2 years, everything went swimmingly for Go Jian. The sun was shining, the flowers blooming, and best of all, not a single Wu soldier in sight. Your Majesty, Wu is in the process of amassing a force to attack our state. So, they want war? Then a war they will get. This time, Go Jian is taking the initiative. He is now older, more experienced, and he's still got that big PP energy from his victory 2 years ago. So he's launching a preemptive strike to catch them off guard. And he lost. Your Majesty, didn't I tell you that Wu is still too strong, and you should have waited for a better opportunity? Yes, you did, Fan Li. Yes, you did. Now what am I supposed to do? Patience, my king. Patience. Go Jian's force was brought to near annihilation, and his state was in jeopardy, so he had no choice but to surrender and let Yue become a vassal of Wu. This way, at least Yue will survive. But the grudge between Gou Jian and Fu Chai ran too deep. So this deal is not going to be signed so easily. Even after bribing a corrupt Wu minister, the best deal they could get out of the negotiation still involved sending Gou Jian and his wife to the court of Wu as slaves. And so they went, with Fan Li, his most trusted minister, in tow.
Well, at least I'm still alive. There is hope for us yet, Fan Li. We will return to Yue and I will be king again. A bit of slave work will do me no harm. I will just sleep in and enjoy the Wu sea breeze on my days off, and time will fly in a blink of the eye.
Days off, Your Majesty? Please allow me to explain the intricacies of slavery to you. Together, they toiled as slaves for 3 long years, without a single peep of complaint. Their utter subservience impressed Fu Chai so much he even felt that it was safe to send them back. But life is never so easy. There were rumblings of objections and even murder plots against Gou Jian coming from Wu's ministers. So he had to take a drastic measure. Sometime later, Fu Chai fell sick. Gou Jian knew that his chance had come. So he went to his master's chamber and waited outside. Not long after, a chamber minister emerged. There's his chance, he thought. Gou Jian rushed him and grabbed the chamber pot. He stuck his finger into the content and immediately proceeds to pop his finger into his mouth.
Congratulations, my king. You shall recover soon.
What the did you just do? Well, that's excellent news. But, ew.
He pretended to diagnose Fu Chai's illness by tasting his stool. He lied by saying that he had received training from an expert physician who can diagnose illness by tasting human waste. This charade was actually a desperate gambit by Gou Jian. A few days earlier, Fan Li, who was well versed in the art of divination, had predicted that Fu Chai will recover from his illness. But nobody can truly know the wills of the heavens. Even the best diviners failed more often than they had succeeded. Nevertheless, playing this charade to demonstrate his unwavering subservience was his only ticket out of here. So he had to do whatever he can to earn this extra, pardon the pun, brownie points. If the prediction comes true, he will be hailed as a devoted servant. Nay, a hero even. But if he was wrong, then not only that he had humiliated himself, he would also have condemned himself for lying to the king. Sometime later, King Fu Chai recovered. It worked! Fu Chai was so impressed by Gou Jian's brown-nosing and his willingness to humiliate himself, he held a banquet in his honor before releasing him back to Yue.
Oh, not so close. I can smell your breath.
Once he is home, Gou Jian's Yue continued to serve Wu as a dutiful vassal state, fulfilling all of Wu's exorbitant whims to fuel Fu Chai's campaign against the northern states and secure his claim as the new hegemon.
Yeah, master, yes.
But covertly, he nursed his grudge and constantly reminded himself of the bitterness of his humiliation by sleeping on coarse brushwood and tasting gall.
Vengeance will be mine.
So, he made a series of the most passive-aggressive moves ever in Chinese history.
Psst, hey, do you like towers?
Knowing that Fu Chai had a penchant for massive construction projects, Gou Jian sent as much of the best lumber as he can to fuel his building spree, exhausting the Wu peasantry who had to work on the projects and draining the treasury. For every peasant working on the construction project, it means less food was produced and less tax income.
Psst, hey, do you like girls?
Then, to distract Fu Chai from stately affairs, Gou Jian sent the most beautiful women in the land to serve him. One of them, Xi Si, will be recorded in history as one of the 4 most beautiful women in the history of China. Ambitious crossovers, man.
Psst, hey, can I buy grains?
To twist the proverbial knife deeper into Fu Chai's back, he faked the famine and bought as much grain from Wu as possible, promising to return them next year in the form of the finest quality seeds. But 1 year later, before they sent the seeds to Wu, Gou Jian ordered them to be boiled. Thus, the seeds will produce no crops. But once they realized this, it will already be too late, and Wu was plunged into famine. While all of this was happening, Gou Jian lived a humble, frugal life, working among his people. He reformed his economy and trained his army with the best instructors regardless of their background and genders. He even employed a famous swordswoman from the southern forest and trained his soldiers in the art of sword fighting. She also happened to be the first swordswoman to be recorded in history, who was later known as the Maiden of Yue. But that's a story for another time. After a decade of planning, in 482 BCE, while Fu Chai was in the north attending a summit with other state leaders, Gou Jian finally found the opportunity to launch his long-awaited attack. Sure, big move, but there is no better opportunity for him to strike than now. Fu Chai had brought his best troops to the summit and left only the weak and old to guard Wu. With his army of 50,000 men, Gou Jian crushed the ineffective defenders, captured the crown prince and executed him. Double dick move. He then also burned Fu Chai's palace for the triple whammy.
Are you alright, Fu Chai?
Yes, everything is fine. Wu isn't under attack. My son is still alive. And my palace isn't burning at all.
Fu Chai, not wanting to lose face in front of the other state leaders and jeopardize his status as hegemon, pretended that nothing had happened. But once the summit was over, he immediately returned to sue for peace with Yue. Even though his initial attack was successful, Gou Jian was not strong enough to finish off the Wu forces, so he accepted the peace. Nevertheless, Wu's days were numbered. In the next few years, Gou Jian tortuously crushed Wu bit by bit before annexing it. Fu Chai, not wanting to bear the shame of becoming Gou Jian's slave, committed suicide. The war between Wu and Yue finally ended in 473 BCE. On the same year, after a round of shrewd diplomatic moves, Gou Jian was proclaimed hegemon. It wasn't known exactly when Gou Jian forged his sword, but its discovery in Hubei matched history, because 6 generations after Gou Jian's rule, Wu and Yue was annexed by Chu. It is not hard to imagine that the sword could have come into the possession of a Chu nobility, and it was buried with him as a prized possession. The spearhead of Fu Chai's spear was also discovered in the same area years after the sword was found, but it bore more tarnish compared to Gou Jian's sword. Gou Jian's victory immortalized his practice of sleeping on brushwood and tasting gall into a Chinese idiom, 卧薪尝胆, which means enduring hardship to achieve something great. Or, oh damn, this mofo is trying to backstab you. In the Sinosphere, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam, Gou Jian is generally considered an inspirational figure. His perseverance against hardship to achieve greatness is a model to be emulated. But some consider him to be a treacherous and vindictive man, returning mercy with betrayal. He is certainly a complicated figure. But what do you think? Is he a hero or a villain? Comment below and share your opinion. If you'd like to see more kick-ass content on myths, legends, histories, and culture from Asia and other parts of the world, then remember to subscribe and click on the bell button. Until next time, stay cool, my bros.